Hey guys, tonight you find yourself tucked beneath the low beams of a roadside lodging, where cold stone presses through the rushes on the floor, damp straw sighs under your elbows, and smoke from the hearth gathers in the rafters like a tired old ghost refusing to pay rent. Outside, monastery bells mark the hour beyond the river mist, and the horses in the yard breathe white clouds into the winter air, their hooves deep in mud that clings to your boots as if medieval travel brochures really oversold this experience. A half-burned beeswax candle trembles beside you, throwing gold over an iron key, an oak door, and a wool blanket that smells faintly of rain, smoke, and somebody else's long journey. You warm your hands near the embers and admit, quietly, that you probably would not last a week out here, not with the cold stones, thin soup, suspicious fleas, and bedding that seems mostly theoretical. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here, and, as always, tell me in the comments where you are listening from, and what time it is in your corner of the world. Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. The bell's last note fades into the timbered dark, and you lie still for a while, listening to the inn settle around you. Somewhere below, a dog scratches at a door. Somewhere above, rain finds a loose tile and drips with the patience of a monk copying the same holy letter for the 14th time. The innkeeper has told you that the western road is poor, the southern road is worse, and the road beyond the hills is not a road at all but a rumour, which is how many journeys begin when sensible people have already gone to bed. Yet you rise before dawn, because the strange pilgrim at the hearth pressed a small woven charm into your palm and said that beyond the last familiar chapel, beyond the wet fields and black pines, there lies a land of mountains so high they seem to hold up the stars. No one can quite agree whether he is a true pilgrim, a trader, a liar, or merely a man who has eaten too much smoked fish and begun seeing kingdoms in the steam from his pottage. His cloak is fur-lined but patched. His boots are cracked, and around his neck hangs not a saint's badge, but a tiny bright shell tied with a red thread. You tuck it beneath your tunic now as you step outside. Morning is only a grey promise. The yard smells of wet wool, horse breath, sour ale, and cold ashes. The stable boy, who looks as if he has been born directly into disappointment, hands you your pack and mutters that the mule bites only strangers, friends, and people standing nearby. A reassuring beast. Then, you lead it past the gate while frost silvering the puddles breaks under your boots, and the inn shrinks behind you, one yellow window in a world of blue-black fields. The road at first is properly medieval in its discomfort, rutted, muddy, edged with bare hedges and leaning crosses. You pass a roadside shrine where ribbons flap from a thorn tree, each one tied by someone hoping a saint might help with fever, childbirth, lost cattle, or a husband who snores like a collapsing barn. Some swear that if you leave a bent pin there and walk away without looking back, a toothache will ease by sunset. Even now, it is hard to tell whether the cure lies in faith, luck, or simply being distracted from pain by the misery of walking uphill in frozen boots. By mid-morning, the monastery bells are far behind you. The country changes slowly, the way a dream changes without asking permission. The hedges grow thinner, the pines climb higher, the air sharpens, your cloak gathers beads of mist, and your mule, who has strong opinions about every stone, begins to move with the weary dignity of a minor lord denied a better chair. You stop beneath a leaning oak to eat coarse bread, a heel of cheese, and a strip of smoked fish wrapped in cloth. The bread is so hard it may once have served as a defensive wall. Still, you eat it gratefully, because ordinary hunger has no poetry in it, only teeth and patience. You drink from a leather flask and look across the rising land. The pilgrim walks ahead without seeming to tire, his red thread shell bright against the grey. Past noon, the road narrows into a forest track, Rain darkens the trunks. A crow calls once, then thinks better of it. You pass a broken cartwheel half sunk in the ditch, its spokes mossy and green, and beside it a little heap of stones left by travellers. The pilgrim adds one more stone to the heap. You do the same, because it feels unwise to offend customs you do not understand, especially when the trees are watching in that old forest way. Every road asks a toll, he says. You wait for him to explain. He does not. This is very typical of mysterious pilgrims, and frankly a poor habit in guides. Near evening, the forest opens not onto the next village, as you expect, but onto a pass between mountains, vast and pale beneath the sinking sky. The air grows thin. The mud beneath your boots becomes gravel, then frost-hardened earth. Behind you, the world of abbey bells and alehouses seems folded away like a cloak in a chest. Ahead, the mountains stand in long blue ranks, their summits lit with the last amber of day, and far below, a valley holds threads of smoke, stepped fields, and roofs that do not belong to any manor you have known. You descend as twilight settles. The path is lined with stones so neatly fitted they seem to remember every foot that has crossed them. You see terraces cut into the slopes, not like the open strips of a medieval village field, but like broad green stairs climbing toward the clouds. Water glimmers in narrow channels. Llamas move in a slow line along the ridge, their loads bundled in cloth, their faces wearing the calm judgment of animals who know humans overcomplicate nearly everything. At the edge of the valley, you pause beside a small shrine made of piled stones and offerings a few coca leaves, a shell, a twist of coloured yarn, and a bowl darkened by old smoke. The pilgrim lowers his head. You follow, not quite bowing, not quite praying, only standing quietly because the mountains feel less like scenery and more like elders listening. Below, the village wakes into evening life. People move between low houses of earth and thatch. A woman bends over a clay hearth, stirring steam from a pot. A child's laughter rises and vanishes behind a wall, and though the tale will keep its gentler path and leave children at the edge of the firelight, the sound reminds you that this high world is not made only of kings, temples, and conquest. It is made of hands. Hands grinding maize, hands carrying water, hands weaving wool, hands counting knots, hands warming over coals after a long day in the fields. You smell smoke, potatoes roasting, damp earth, and animal wool. Not the smoke of your inn, with its sour ale and rush-strewn floor, but a cleaner, thinner smoke, touched by mountain cold. A dog trots from the nearest house, stops, and stares at you with deep suspicion. It looks very much like the same dog from the inn, though that is impossible, unless dogs also know secret roads between worlds and simply choose not to tell us. Those who tell the tale never fully agree on that part. The pilgrim points to the village. There, he says, ordinary people. And perhaps because the mountains are turning violet, and the first stars are pricking through the sky, and the road behind you has gone silent as a shut church door. The words feel heavier than they should. Ordinary people. Not lords in jewelled halls, not warriors painted in glory, not priests holding golden things beneath the sun, but families who wake cold, work hard, laugh softly, worry over food stores, mend sandals, share burdens, fear omens, honour ancestors, and hope tomorrow's weather will be kind. You step down toward them, your boots dusty now instead of muddy, your cloak smelling of old smoke and new wind. Somewhere in the settlement, a flute begins a low, wandering tune. Somewhere nearby, maize husks rustle in the dark. The half-burned candle from the inn is still in your pack, though you do not remember putting it there, and when your fingers brush it, the wax is warm. The first house opens its doorway to the dusk. Firelight spills across the packed earth. You duck your head and enter, carrying the long road with you, while outside the high terraces darken, the llamas settle, and the mountains keep watch over everything ordinary, necessary, and quietly strange. The doorway lowers you into warmth, and for a moment the mountain world becomes one room, packed earth beneath your feet, dark thatch above your head, smoke curling through a roof hole where one cold star looks in. You smell roasted tubers, damp wool, clay, ash, and herbs drying from a beam. A woman with silver in her braid studies you as if deciding whether you're a traveller, a burden, or a poorly wrapped offering. The dog, naturally, votes for burden. You're given a low place near the hearth. The pilgrim settles beside the wall, quiet as an ink-stained scribe pretending he has not ruined a holy margin. A clay cup of warm drink is placed in your hands. It is not ale, but something earthy and sour-sweet. And you sip carefully, because the first rule of strange roads is never to insult the cup. Inside, shadows move over clay pots, baskets, folded cloth, and a grinding stone worn smooth by patient hands. Ordinary life does not explain itself. It waits until you have watched long enough. Before dawn, the household stirs. There is no monastery bell here to cut the morning into pieces, yet the day has its own summons. A rooster calls down the slope. Llamas mutter. Someone coughs. The fire is coaxed from embers with dry grass and breath. And the room fills with soft grey haze. You wake beneath a wool blanket, warmer than expected, though your nose feels cold enough to be counted separately from the rest of you. The old woman lifts the door covering, and pale light enters. Beyond it, the village rests in blue dawn among terraces and stone paths. Houses of earth and thatch cluster like animals keeping warm. Smoke rises from each roof in thin threads. Water whispers beside the lane. The mountains stand enormous and still, their lower slopes patched with fields that belong not to one lord behind an oak door, but to families bound together by kinship, custom, and labour. The pilgrim gives you the word softly Ailu. You repeat it under your breath. An Ailu is not quite a manor, not quite a village, not quite a family, though it is something of all three. It is the circle of people who share ancestors, land, work, obligations, quarrels, meals, and the memory of who helped whom when frost came early or potatoes failed. No one can quite agree whether the living hold the land, or the ancestors hold it and lend it to the breathing for a little while. In the grey morning, both answers seem possible. You step outside and follow the household toward the fields. The path is narrow and neatly laid, edged by damp stones. Women carry bundles, men shoulder tools, and sleepy young helpers drive animals ahead. Little is wasted here, broken cord tied again, a worn sandal patched with hide, a cracked pot kept for dry grain. In a medieval town, you have seen tollmen weigh bread as if loaves plotted rebellion. Here too, life is counted, but not in coins. It is counted in labour days, rows planted. Cloth woven, food shared, and favours remembered. In a small open space, people gather before scattering to their work. A headman speaks in a steady voice. He names families, fields, water turns, storehouse duties, and a terrace wall loosened by rain. The rhythm feels familiar, like a manor court without the oak bench or the scolding bailiff. Everyone seems to know who owes what. This is useful, and also mildly terrifying. A young man offers you a wooden digging tool with a footrest. You accept it with the confidence of someone who should not be trusted with agriculture. He shows you how to press it into the soil and move along the row. Your first attempt makes a sad scrape and a silence so polite it becomes painful. The dog sits nearby with the expression of a master craftsman witnessing a crime. Soon the field fills with quiet motion. Feet press, hands lift, soil turns. The earth is cold, but underneath it smells alive. People work close enough to speak, sing, and tease. Someone passes roasted tubers from a cloth, and the food moves hand to hand before anyone takes too much. In this Elu, hunger is not only private, A full belly and an empty one are both noticed. The pilgrim explains that land is divided for households, for sacred powers, and for the state. The ordinary family tends its own plot, but also gives labour beyond the doorstep. You think of Abbey Fields back home, of peasants cutting hay for a lord whose table they never sit at. There are no silver pennies clicking in a purse, no alewife chalking debts by the barrel. Obligation here walks on feet and bends its back under the same high sky as everyone else. By mid-morning, sunlight clears the ridge. The headman's wife sprinkles a few drops of drink onto the ground before sipping. Some swear that the earth hears such gestures better than long prayers, especially when the offering is made before greed takes its share. You have seen monks kiss relics no one trusts and pilgrims pin bright badges to their hats. Here, a little drink darkens the soil, and no one laughs. Work pauses near a low wall. You sit on a stone and eat potatoes with salt, maize, and something green and bitter that wakes your mouth. Around you, people speak of weather, water, stubborn animals, and a missing cord bundle everyone politely does not blame on the same aunt. Ordinary gossip, you discover, crosses every mountain pass in the world. A man beside you unwraps a small carved figure. It belonged, he says, to his mother's mother, or perhaps farther back. Those who tell the family tale never fully agree. It is kept near the sleeping place during storms and carried to the fields when frost threatens. You hold it for one breath. The wood is dark with oil from many hands, and it seems to remember mornings of eating, arguing, forgiving, and going back to work because terraces do not care who won the argument. When the meal ends, people rise without ceremony. One group turns toward upper fields, another toward a water channel, another back to the houses where wool waits and pots need mending. You walk with them, the tool over your shoulder, dust on your hem, the red thread shell tapping beneath your tunic. Behind you, sun brightens the terraces. Ahead, smoke lifts from the roofs. The village is fully awake now, not as a trumpet wakes a castle yard, but as embers wake under breath, one glow at a time. Ordinary life here is not small at all. It is a web pulled tight across family, field, ancestor, mountain, and empire, and every person you pass holds one strand in cold, capable hands. The path climbs after the meal, and the village falls below you by slow degrees, roof by roof, smoke thread by smoke thread, until the houses seem tucked into the valley like coals banked under ash. You follow the others along a stone-edged way that bends between terraces. Those wide green steps cut into the mountain with such patient labour that you begin to suspect the hill itself has been persuaded, not conquered. The morning sun warms one shoulder while the other still keeps the night's chill, and your breath thins as you climb. Your boots, which complained loudly in the muddy roads of the lower world, now scrape dust and frost from stones fitted so neatly that even a suspicious monk might have to nod in approval. Above you, fields rise in layers. Below you, water glitters in little channels, running where hands have asked it to run. The people of the Aelu move across the terraces with the practiced ease of those who know each ledge, each loose stone, each patch of soil that dries too quickly, and each corner where frost lingers like an unwelcome guest at a feast. You carry the wooden digging tool from the morning, though it has already become clear that the tool carries more dignity than you do. A man with a red woven band around his head leads you to a field of potatoes. He presses his foot to the tool's rest and sinks it deep, then lifts the earth with a motion so smooth it seems hardly work at all. When you try, the soil resists, the handle wobbles, and a nearby woman covers her smile with the back of her hand. In fairness, you are a guest from a world where peasants swing hoes in heavy clay, monks ring bells to divide the hours, and some people still believe that putting a warm onion in a sick room can frighten illness away. You cannot be expected to master mountain farming before the sun has properly cleared the ridge. The dog, who has followed despite no invitation from anyone, appears to disagree. The terrace soil is dark and crumbly, held in place by stone walls that catch heat by day and release it at night. The pilgrim tells you that such walls help protect the crops from cold. You touch the stones and feel faint warmth beneath your palm, though the wind still slips under your cloak and finds every weak place in your courage. No one can quite agree whether the first people learned this from long watching, from necessity, or from mountain spirits whispering through frost. Here, useful knowledge and sacred mystery sit beside one another like two old women at the hearth, each pretending not to listen while hearing everything. You move along rows where potatoes nest in the earth, then climb again toward maize, its leaves rustling in the thin air. Farther off, quinoa lifts pale seed heads that tremble when the wind touches them. In a sheltered patch, coca shrubs grow carefully tended, their leaves small, green, and quietly important. The old woman from the house takes a few leaves, holds them a moment, and places some beneath a stone near the path. Some swear that coca leaves carry words better than the tongue does, especially when the words are meant for the earth, the peaks, or the dead who still keep an eye on family affairs. You think of saints' relics wrapped in silk, of pilgrims touching bone and cloth through iron grills, of beeswax candles guttering before painted panels in chapels where damp creeps up the stone. Here, there is no chapel wall, no altar rail, no carved saint with calm wooden eyes. There is a mountain face, a stone, a breath of wind, and 3 leaves laid down with care. The gesture is small, but nobody treats it as small. At the edge of the maize field, the headman shows you a channel blocked with silt. Several people kneel to clear it with hands, scoops, and flat stones. Water is not allowed to wander where it pleases. It must be guided, shared, watched, and argued over with the seriousness of inheritance. In your old villages, men quarrel over mill rights, grazing strips, and who has let pigs root too near the churchyard. Here, the quarrel would be water. Because water decides which terrace lives and which goes thirsty. Even now, it's hard to tell whether the channel sounds cheerful because it is flowing again, or because you are relieved not to be blamed for blocking it. By midday, the work slows. People rest in the narrow shade of a wall, a cloth bundle opens, and food appears: potatoes baked in ash, a handful of toasted maize, bits of dried meat, and a drink passed carefully from one mouth to another. Nothing is wasted, not crumbs, not peelings, not time. A woman mends a strap while she eats, a man twists cord from fibre, another rubs sore fingers with an herbal paste that smells sharp and green. The pilgrim says it is used for stiffness after cold work. Those who tell such remedies never fully agree on whether the herb draws pain out, drives warmth in, or merely gives the hands something hopeful to smell. You sit with your back against the warm stones and look out. Clouds drift below a far peak, making the upper terraces seem to float. Llamas move along a ridge path in a tidy line, bells soft at their throats, their woolly loads swaying. The sound reminds you faintly of monastery bells at a great distance, though these bells do not command prayer. They simply announce that someone, somewhere, is transporting goods with an animal who looks unimpressed by the whole arrangement. The red thread shell beneath your tunic taps gently as you rise again. The headman points higher, where a terrace wall has cracked. You join a line of people passing stones hand to hand. The work is slow and communal, almost sleepy in its rhythm lift. Pass, set, lift, pass, set. Each stone finds a place. Each gap closes. The wall becomes strong not through one heroic blow, but through many small agreements between hands. It is a lesson the mountain repeats everywhere. Fields are not made in a day. Empires are not held by golden temples alone. Ordinary life is built like this wall, with backs bent, palms chilled, jokes murmured, and someone always noticing when the water begins to stray. Late afternoon turns the terraces gold. Shadows lengthen from wall to wall. The people gather tools, fold cloths, lift bundles, and begin the descent. Before leaving, the old woman pauses and touches the ground with her fingertips, then her forehead. You do not ask why. Not every custom needs to be pulled apart like a badly baked loaf. Some things are understood best by walking quietly after them. You descend with tired legs and a fuller sense of the place. The mountain no longer looks wild in the way it did at dawn. It looks inhabited, remembered, negotiated with. Below, the village smoke rises again, and somewhere a hearth is being coaxed alive. Your hands smell of soil and herbs. Your cloak holds the dry scent of sun-warmed stone. Behind you, the terraces keep their silence, step after step above the clouds, as if the mountain itself has learned to breathe in rows of maize, potatoes, quinoa, and coca, and to exhale the soft patience of ordinary people going home before dark. By the time you reach the village again, your legs have learned a new language, and most of its words mean uphill. The terraces behind you fade into purple shadow, while the roofs ahead gather the last light along their thatched edges. Smoke rises from roof holes in pale cords, twisting upward until the wind combs them thin. You walk between low walls of packed earth and stone, past doorways hung with woven cloth, past stacks of drying fuel, past tools leaned carefully where morning hands can find them. The dog pads at your heel with the smug devotion of a creature who has adopted you against your will. The household door is low, and you duck beneath it into warmth. After the open mountain, the room feels close and secret, like the inside of a chest where a family keeps all its necessary things sleep. Hunger, quarrels, laughter, smoke, and the smell of roasted potatoes. The walls are made of earth, thick and cool beneath your fingers, patched where weather has worried them. The roof is thatch and timber, blackened above the hearth, and the floor is packed hard from years of feet. There are no rushes scattered over cold castle stone here, no grand hall where servants sweep old straw and bones into corners while pretending rats are merely small household guests. Instead, woven mats soften places for sitting and sleeping, and folded wool blankets are stacked with a care that makes them seem almost ceremonial. A clay hearth glows near the centre. Its fire is small but steady, fed with dry stems and dung fuel that burns with a scent you decide not to judge, because warmth is warmth, and winter has never been proud. Clay pots nest beside the coals. A grinding stone rests near the wall, its surface worn smooth as old prayer steps. Baskets hang from pegs. Bundles of herbs dry overhead. A few wooden bowls sit upside down to keep out dust. Though dust in this room appears to have ancestral rights. Near the far corner, something rustles. You turn slowly. Several guinea pigs blink from a low pen, round and calm, as if they have been appointed household witnesses. The old woman notices your stare and gives a small smile. In this world, they are not little pets dressed in foolish ribbons, as some bored noble child in a far-off castle might attempt before being corrected by everyone sensible. They are food, warmth, omen, and household presence, living close to the hearth, listening to family troubles with more patience than most priests. Some swear that when guinea pigs grow restless before dawn, they sense illness, visitors, or weather changing beyond the ridge. No one can quite agree whether this is wisdom, nerves, or simply the natural suspicion of small animals living near cooking pots. The evening settles into tasks. A woman kneels by the grinding stone, pressing maize with a rolling motion that would tire your shoulders within moments. A man repairs a sandal strap with fibre cord. The headman's wife folds a cloth so precisely it seems to have laws of its own. Someone turns potatoes in the ash. Someone else shakes out a mat near the wall. You're handed a bundle of wool and invited, by gesture more than words, to help loosen it. You do so carefully, trying not to appear as useless as you feel. Medieval guest law, whether in a smoky alehouse or a high Andean home, has one golden rule: accept work before you accept seconds. The pilgrim sits near the doorway, mending the edge of his cloak with red thread. Firelight catches the shell at his neck. You think of the half-burned beeswax candle still hidden in your pack, and of the iron key beside it from the inn, though you still cannot remember taking the key. 'Tis a poor habit, accidentally collecting symbolic objects from impossible journeys, but the night seems unconcerned. As darkness thickens, the house becomes a lantern. Outside, the mountains lose their shape. Inside, faces glow and fade around the hearth. The old woman takes a small bundle from a niche in the wall, bits of cord, a feather, a dark pebble, a twist of hair or fibre, and a tiny folded cloth. She does not show it to everyone, and nobody asks too quickly. Those who tell the tale never fully agree whether such bundles hold luck, memory, protection, or the attention of ancestors who still prefer to be consulted before major decisions. She breathes over it, murmurs a few words, and places it back into shadow. You remember roadside shrines of your own world, saints' bones behind cloudy glass, pilgrim badges pinned to cloaks, charms sewn into hems against fever, and the old belief that an iron nail under a threshold can keep ill luck from crossing. Here the threshold has no iron nail, but beside it lies a smooth stone darkened by touch. Each person entering brushes it lightly with fingers. You do the same when the old woman nods. The stone is cool, then strangely warm. You're not foolish enough to claim it means anything. You're also not foolish enough to claim it means nothing. Food comes without announcement. A woven cloth is spread. Clay bowls are placed near the fire. Potatoes, maize, a thick mash, and a little dried meat are shared in portions that feel careful but not ungenerous. Steam rises into your face. Your hands warm around the bowl. The first mouthful is earthy, smoky, and plain in the way food becomes beautiful after work. Back in a manor hall, trencher bread might soak up gravy beneath the elbows of men who boast too loudly. Here, no one boasts. People eat with the quiet attention of those who know exactly how many baskets remain in storage and how long the cold season may stretch. The room softens after supper. A spindle turns in one woman's hand. Fibre becomes thread by slow magic, though the pilgrim insists it is skill, not magic, which is exactly what someone says when magic has learned to behave politely. The headman speaks of a roof needing repair. Another voice answers from the dark. A laugh moves softly around the room. The dog lies near the doorway, finally pleased with itself. The guinea pigs rustle once, and everyone glances toward them for half a breath before pretending they did not. You are shown where to sleep. Along the wall, beneath a wool blanket heavy with the smell of lanolin, smoke, and mountain air. The mat beneath you is firmer than any feather bed promised by a noble host, and far more honest. You lie down with your pack under your head. The candle and iron key press faintly through the cloth. Firelight trembles across the roof beams. Smoke finds its way upward through the dark. Outside, a llama coughs. Somewhere higher, water ticks through a channel. Somewhere beyond the walls, the terraces hold the day's warmth under frost. The house breathes around you, earth and thatch, clay and wool, ancestors and animals, ordinary hands resting before ordinary labour returns. You close your eyes, and the last thing you hear is the old woman shifting beside the hearth, banking the coals with ash so morning will not have to begin from nothing. Morning comes not with a bell, but with breath and ember. The old woman rises while the room is still blue with sleep, and you hear her before you see her, a soft scrape of clay, a hush of ash, a patient blowing at the banked coals. The fire answers slowly, one red eye opening beneath grey powder. Smoke lifts, finds the roof hole, and slips into the pale dawn. You sit up under the wool blanket, your bones remembering yesterday's terraces with unhelpful clarity. The dog opens one eye, judges you still alive, and closes it again. Near the hearth, the guinea pigs rustle in their corner, tiny household spirits with whiskers and no interest in your aching legs. Tubers roll from a basket. Maize is brought out in a woven cloth, and the day begins not with grand words, but with food being handled carefully. In your old world of manor kitchens and monastery guest houses, breakfast may be coarse bread, yesterday's pottage, ale thin enough to pass as a rumour, and perhaps smoked fish if fortune has not gone elsewhere. Here, the morning meal has another shape. Potatoes, wrinkled and earth-sweet, are nestled into ash. A flat cake of maize is warmed on a stone. The headman's wife crumbles herbs between her fingers, and their scent rises green and sharp. She notices you watching and offers a small piece of pale, dried potato. It is light, almost ghostly, and hard enough to make you briefly miss your defensive bread from the road. The pilgrim murmurs the word chuño, potatoes frozen in the bitter night, dried beneath the sun, pressed by feet, kept for seasons when the fields give less. You turn it in your palm, this humble thing made by cold, patience, and necessity. No one can quite agree whether the first maker of chuño was clever, desperate, or simply too tired to throw ruined potatoes away, but the result is treated with respect. A clay bowl is placed before you. The softened chuño has been cooked into a thick, warming food with herbs and bits of something savoury. It is plain, yes, but not poor in the way a careless lord might mean poor. It is stored sunlight, mountain frost, human planning, and the quiet refusal to be surprised by hunger. You eat slowly, steam dampens your face. Outside, dawn widens over the terraces. After the first meal, the household does not linger long. Food travels with the work. A woman wraps roasted potatoes in cloth. Maize cakes are stacked and tied. A skin of drink is checked, stoppered, and slung over a shoulder. You're given a small bundle to carry, which feels like an honour until you realise everyone else is carrying more and complaining less. Medieval humility arrives best when your pack is lighter than an old woman's. The path to the lower fields passes drying racks where maize hangs in pale clusters. Nearby, strips of meat dry in smoke, guarded from dogs, damp, and overly curious guests. Baskets sit under a roofed lean-to, raised above the ground. The old woman taps one with her knuckles and listens, as if judging the season by sound. Some swear a full basket answers with a dull, happy note, while an unlucky basket rings too sharply. Even now, it is hard to tell whether she believes this, or whether she simply enjoys making young people listen to vegetables. At the field edge, people pause before eating again. The headman tips the first drops of chicha onto the ground, and the liquid darkens the soil in a small crescent. Then the cup passes. Chicha is not like the ale you know, though it carries the same social power. It warms tongues, softens shoulders, marks welcome, seals labour, and occasionally persuades quiet uncles to become philosophers. You sip when it comes to you. It is sour, grainy, alive, and faintly sweet. The dog watches with concern. Food here is never only food. A potato is a field remembered. Maize is sunlight disciplined into rows. Coca leaves tucked into a pouch are strength for a climb and a whisper to powers you do not mock. Salt is precious. Herbs are medicine, flavour, and warning. Grandmother can look at a pot and know how many mouths have eaten, how many will return hungry, and whether someone has been stealing roasted maize before supper. You work through the afternoon near a patch of quinoa, though today your hands are spared the worst tasks. You carry water, hold a basket, gather fallen leaves, and try to be useful in ways that do not endanger the harvest. When the sun leans west, everyone sits in the narrow shade of a wall. The food bundles open. No one takes before the elders. No one wastes. A cracked maize cake is shared rather than discarded. Potato skins go where animals may nose them later. The pilgrim tells you that in hard seasons, stored food can mean the difference between fear and endurance. Families dry, freeze, smoke, parch, and tuck away what they can. Yet storage is not hoarding alone, it is memory made edible. A mother remembers a child's appetite. A widow remembers which neighbour brought food during fever. Those who tell the tale never fully agree whether generosity comes first from kindness, duty, fear of gossip, or the ancestors watching from some high invisible bench. In the ale, it is safest to behave as if all four are true. Near evening, the village gathers around several hearths. A larger pot simmers, thick with potatoes, maize, greens, and herbs. The smell rolls through the lane, and even the dog becomes reverent. The old woman hands you a warm bowl and a maize cake browned at the edge. You sit outside the doorway, watching smoke climb into a violet sky. Your hands ache pleasantly. Your hunger has become simple and honest. Someone laughs at a story about a llama who refused to cross a bridge until sung to, which sounds unlikely until you've met enough llamas. Someone else claims a certain herb prevents stomach trouble if tied above the cooking place during the dark moon. Another disagrees, saying it only works if the herb is stolen from a cousin. The argument remains gentle, because supper is too good to waste on certainty. You eat until warmth spreads from your mouth to your chest and down into your tired legs. The half-burnt candle and iron key rest in your pack by the wall, forgotten for now. Around you, ordinary people finish the long day with bowls in their hands, ash on their sleeves, and tomorrow already waiting in the baskets, drying racks, and covered pots. Every mouthful has travelled through frost, fire, labour, memory, and care. You lower your empty bowl, and in the quiet after eating, the whole high village seems to breathe with you. After supper, the bowls are rinsed with a little water and set upside down near the wall, and the house shifts from eating into making. This is not a sudden change. It happens softly, the way embers sink and still keep their heat. One person scrapes ash from a cooking stone, another ties up a basket. The old woman checks the doorway cloth against the night wind, then sits by the hearth with wool in her lap, and soon the room fills with the quiet, steady work of fingers. You sit close enough to feel the fire on your knees. Your back rests against the packed earth wall, and your wool blanket lies folded beside you, smelling of smoke, mountain air, and the animal it came from. The dog has placed itself near your feet, not affectionately, you understand, but as if guarding the village from your future mistakes. The guinea pigs murmur in their corner. Outside, the cold presses against the house, but inside, thread begins to form. A woman draws fibre from a soft cloud of wool and lets a spindle drop, twist, and spin. Her hand moves with such ease that at first you think the thread is simply appearing because it wants to. Then she hands the spindle to you. This is cruel, but politely done. You pinch the wool, try to guide the twist, and immediately produce something that resembles a sickly worm. The spindle wobbles, the thread thickens, thins, nearly breaks, then tangles itself in a way that feels personal. No one laughs loudly, which is somehow worse. The old woman takes it back with mercy in her eyes and fixes your disaster in 3 breaths. Some swear that good spinners are born with thread already hidden in their fingers, waiting only for wool to reveal it. No one can quite agree whether this is praise, superstition, or a warning to clumsy travellers. In a monastery scriptorium, you have seen scribes bend over parchment, their fingers stained black with ink, each letter slow and exact beneath beeswax candlelight. Here, the work is different, but no less disciplined. Fibre passes through hands, thread winds around spindles. Patterns are planned in memory before they appear in cloth, where a scribe records a saint's life in brown lines. These women record kinship, skill, place, and duty in colour and weave. The pilgrim lifts a finished cloth from a peg and lays it across his knees. Firelight runs over red, black, yellow, and cream. The pattern is not thrown together for prettiness alone. It speaks, though not in words you can read. A band may show where someone comes from, what labour they do, whether they are married, honoured, young, old, local, distant, ordinary, or set apart for some special duty. Even now, it is hard to tell whether clothing in this world is more like a garment, a memory, or a document that has learned to keep a person warm. You touch the edge of the cloth, and the weave is firm beneath your fingers. Not soft like a noble's fur lining, not coarse like a peasant's damp tunic after 3 days of the rain, but dense, patient, and alive with work. The old woman points to a mistake near one corner, though barely visible. You lean closer and cannot find it. She taps again. There. One thread strays. She clicks her tongue as if the cloth has misbehaved. The headman's wife shows you dyed yarns wrapped in bundles. Some colours come from plants, some from minerals, some from little crushed sources you choose not to examine too closely before bedtime. A pot near the hearth holds dye water dark as old wine. Herbs hang above it, drying in bunches. One bundle smells bitter, one sweet, one like rain trapped in leaves. In your old villages, people swear that madder can stain cloth and hands with the same stubbornness as sin. While woad makes blue deep enough for a saint's cloak if the dyer has patience and neighbours willing to tolerate the smell, here, different plants and secrets rule, guarded by women who look as if they would rather lend you their best blanket than tell you exactly how the colour holds. A younger woman rubs a thread between her fingers and murmurs something to it. You glance at the pilgrim. He shrugs. Those who tell the tale never fully agree whether such murmurs are prayers, counting, habit, or gentle scolding. Thread, like children, animals, and damp firewood, may behave better when spoken to in the correct tone. The work continues deep into evening. A loom is set low, its cord stretched, its frame simple but commanding. The weaver's body becomes part of the tool back straight, hands moving, feet braced, breath steady. She passes the weft through the warp, tightens, adjusts, passes again. The sound is soft pull, press, tap, pull, press, tap. It is slower than rain, quieter than a bell, more comforting than any noble speech. You watch the pattern grow, line by line. It appears from emptiness, yet nothing about it is accidental. The weaver knows where each colour must go long before your eyes can understand what's happening. Her concentration reminds you of the careful headman naming fields at dawn, of farmers passing stones hand to hand on the terrace wall, of the old woman banking coals so morning will not begin from nothing. Ordinary life here is made from repetition, but repetition is not emptiness. It is the spell by which a world continues. A folded tunic is brought out and shaken near the fire. It is shaped simply, but the cloth is fine. The pilgrim explains that garments can mark rank and origin, and that the finest cloth is not merely clothing but wealth, honour, offering, and obligation. You think of iron keys, oak chests, manor ledgers, and coins locked away under suspicious eyes. Here, value may hang from a peg, wrap around shoulders, or lie folded beside a sleeping mat. A thief stealing cloth would not just take warmth. He would take labour, identity, and many weeks of someone's life, which seems rather rude even by medieval standards. Later, you're allowed to help wind thread into a ball. This task is judged safe. You perform it slowly, with the deep seriousness of a person who has finally been trusted not to damage civilization. The dog sighs, perhaps disappointed by your improvement. Outside, night thickens over the village. The mountains are invisible now, but you feel them beyond the walls, huge and listening. Inside, the spindle turns again and again. Wool becomes thread. Thread becomes cloth. Cloth becomes household need, public sign, private pride, and a quiet bridge between the bodies of llamas, the hands of women, the memory of ancestors, and the reach of an empire you can feel but not yet fully see. At last, the old woman gathers the yarns and covers the dye pot. The loom rests half-finished, its pattern paused like a sentence waiting for morning. You lie down by the wool blanket heavy over you. Your pack presses against your shoulder, holding the half-burned candle, the iron key, and the red thread shell. In the dark, the last sound is the spindle slowing, then stopping, while the house settles around all its made things and all its makers. Warm under thatch, quiet under stars. Before dawn, the house releases you back into the cold. The loom still waits in the corner, its half-grown pattern resting in shadow, and the last warmth of the hearth clings to your cloak as you duck under the doorway cloth. Outside, the village is quiet except for the soft shifting of animals, the whisper of water in its channel, and the small stern snort of the dog, who emerges behind you as if officially appointed to inspect all foreign departures. The sky is dark blue, and the mountains are only larger darknesses against it. A few stars remain, sharp and silver. Your breath clouds in front of your mouth. The old woman presses a warm maize cake into your hand, then adds 3 coca leaves folded together with a twist of fibre. She taps the bundle once, then points toward the path. No one can quite agree whether such a traveller's fold is meant to feed courage, please the mountain, confuse bad luck, or simply remind a hungry person not to complain too early in the morning. You accept it with both hands, because by now you have learned that small things are rarely small here. The pilgrim waits near the lower wall, his red thread shell pale in the starlight. He leads you away from the houses and up toward a ridge where the path grows wider, firmer, and more deliberate. You expect mud, ruts, loose stones, the familiar misery of a medieval road after rain, where carts sink axle deep and everyone blames the weather, the Lord, the saints, or whoever last repaired the bridge. Instead, beneath your boots, the way is paved and edged, fitted with a patience that feels almost stern. It runs along the mountain as if drawn by a ruler in the hand of someone who does not tolerate wandering. The pilgrim names it softly, the Great Road. You step onto it, and the valley opens on one side in a long breath of darkness. Terraces sleep below. Smoke has not yet risen from most roofs. Ahead, the road bends along the slope and vanishes into pale mist, but you can feel its direction even when you cannot see it, as if the stones themselves remember where they are going. By sunrise, travellers begin to appear. First comes a pair of men walking fast, sandals slapping the stone, small bundles tied high on their backs. They carry no heavy load, yet their eyes watch the road with purpose. One wears a feather tucked into a headband, the other carries something wrapped carefully in cloth. They pass with a short greeting and are gone before your hands have warmed. Then comes a line of llamas, soft-footed and solemn, each bearing a balanced load. Their handlers move at an easy pace, murmuring to them now and then. The animals look neither impressed nor hurried, which may be the secret to empire. You walk beside the caravan for a while. The bells at the llamas' necks make a faint chiming, not like monastery bells calling you from sleep or warning you that a monk is about to notice your empty cup, but smaller, more wandering. The sound moves with the road. Packs hold cloth, dried food, tools, perhaps salt, perhaps shells, perhaps things meant for officials farther along the route. The handlers do not explain everything, and you do not ask too greedily. Travellers who ask too many questions are often given answers, and answers are heavier than packs. Near mid-morning, the road crosses a narrow ravine. The bridge ahead is made of woven fibre, thick cables stretched from stone to stone, with planks or branches laid across and side ropes for trembling hands. It sways slightly in the wind. You stop. Your body, which has survived mud, smoke, cold floors, suspicious soup, and spinning wool badly, decides this is where dignity ends. The dog trots across first. This is unnecessary. The pilgrim waits on the far side, looking back with mild patience. A caravan handler touches the bridge rope, murmurs a phrase, and tucks a coca leaf near the anchor stones. Some swear that bridges listen, especially old ones, and they prefer a polite word before carrying feet over empty air. Those who tell the tale never fully agree whether the bridge spirit lives in the rope, the ravine, the wind beneath it, or only in the minds of people wise enough to be nervous. You place one foot on the bridge. It moves. You grip the side ropes with the devotion of a pilgrim clutching a relic he does not entirely trust. Beneath you, water flashes white over stones far below. The fibre creaks, not breaking, only speaking in its woven language. Step by step, breath by breath, you cross. The bridge sways under your weight, then steadies. Halfway across, the wind rises, cool against your face, smelling of rock, grass, and distance. For one strange moment, fear loosens its fingers, and you see the road continuing beyond you, stitched across mountains by hands that have trusted rope, stone, and custom for generations. On the far side, your knees remember they are made of soft mortal material. The dog gives you a look that says he has seen better. You continue. By afternoon, you reach a roadside stopping place of stone walls, packed earth, and a small shelter for travellers. It is not an alehouse, not a monastery guest house, not a castle gatehouse with a guard demanding coins and looking disappointed by your purse. There are no rushes on the floor, no sour ale, no trenchers, no innkeeper swearing the bedding was fresh at Easter. Yet it serves the road in its own way. People rest there, adjust loads, drink, chew coca, and listen for news moving faster than any cart. At a nearby post, a runner waits. He is young, lean, and still as a drawn bow. Around his waist hangs a small pouch. His sandals are worn but well tied. His eyes watch the road ahead, then the road behind. The pilgrim tells you he is a chasqui, one of the messengers who carry words, objects, memory, and command from station to station across the empire. He does not run the whole world at once. No single pair of legs could. Instead, one runner carries the message to the next, who carries it onward and onward again, until distance is broken into human breaths. You hear a call before you see the second runner. A clear sound comes from down the road, then the slap of feet. The waiting chasqui rises, alert and calm. The arriving runner appears around the bend, chest heaving, dust on his legs, a bundle in hand. For a heartbeat, both men move together. Something passes between them, a spoken message. Perhaps a small object, perhaps a knotted cord, perhaps only urgency given a new body, even now. It is hard to tell exactly where one message ends and the next begins. Then the second runner slows, and the first is already gone, flying along the stones as if the road itself has lifted him. You stand very still. In your old world, news limps by horse, by monk, by merchant, by rumour drunk through an alehouse wall. A lord may hear of a death weeks late. A village may learn a tax has changed only when the collector arrives smiling like bad weather. Here, on this cold road beneath enormous sky, words have legs. Evening falls while you remain near the shelter. Travellers gather in small groups. A llama handler shares dried potatoes. Someone passes a drink. A woman repairs a strap by the last light. A man rubs his calves with an herb paste and claims it keeps the road from settling into the bones. Another says the better remedy is to sleep with your sandals pointing toward morning. No one can quite agree whether he means east, downhill, or simply away from the person who snores. The stars come out hard and bright. The great road pales under them, a stone ribbon along the dark slope. Far off, Another runner's call rises and fades. Your half-burned candle stays in your pack, unlit, because the sky has made its own cold candles overhead. You wrap your cloak tighter, chew slowly on the maize cake given at dawn, and watch the travellers settle beside walls, under loads, near animals, close to one another's warmth. The road does not sleep. Even when feet are still, it holds their memory. It carries runners, caravans, officials, pilgrims, families, burdens, commands, gifts, warnings, and little jokes told under breath when the climb is cruel. You lie down beneath your wool blanket, the red thread shell against your chest, and listen to the llama bells fading somewhere beyond the ridge, soft as distant monastery bells from a country you're no longer sure you could find again. The cold road keeps you through the night, and when dawn returns, it comes silver along the edges of the stones. You wake with your cloak pulled to your chin, your wool blanket stiff with frost at one corner, and the red thread shell resting against your chest like a small warm coal. Around you, travellers rise slowly, each person unfolding from sleep with the sorrow of joints that have negotiated poorly with the ground. A llama sneezes. The dog, who has somehow slept well, stretches with insulting grace. No monastery bell calls the hour, yet everyone knows it is time to move. Packs are tightened, sandals are checked. The pilgrim crouches beside a cooking fire, warming his hands above coals no larger than walnuts. You eat cold maize cake and think longingly of pottage, trenchers, rushes on stone floors, and every miserable inn you have ever failed to appreciate. Then the headman from the village appears on the road. He's not alone. Several men and women of the Alu walk behind him, carrying tools, rolled cloth, bundles of food, and ropes. Their faces are calm, but not idle. This is not a market trip, not a festival procession, not a cheerful wandering after rumours of better ale. They have been summoned for work owed beyond their own fields and hearths. The pilgrim gives you the word quietly, Mitta. You walk with them as the sun lifts. The road curves toward a lower valley where workers gather near a broken stretch of wall. Officials stand apart in woven garments, speaking with local leaders, counting people not by coins paid into a chest but by bodies present. Days owed. Tasks assigned. In your old world, a manor bailiff might call peasants to repair a bridge or cut hay, with muttering and one man claiming his back has been cursed by a jealous neighbour. Here, the obligation is wider, steadier, tied into the empire itself. No silver changes hands. That is what feels strangest. No purse opens, no market toll is paid at an oak gate, no clerk scratches debts beside candlelight while pretending his ink stains make him important. Instead, labour is the coin, and time is measured in backs bent under the sun. Each household owes service according to age, strength, kinship, and place. Some repair roads, some tend state lands, some carry loads, some weave cloth. Ordinary people give days from their lives. And the empire gathers those days into roads, terraces, walls, and granaries. You're handed a basket of stones. It seems unwise to argue. The work begins with the rhythm you learned on the terrace wall lift. Pass, set, lift, pass, set. Yet here the scale feels different. The road must stay open for runners, caravans, officials, soldiers, messengers, and goods moving farther than your imagination comfortably travels. A cracked edge is rebuilt. Drainage channels are cleared. Loose stones are wedged back into place. The sun warms the back of your neck, and dust gathers at your wrists. An older worker shows you how to set the stone so water will leave rather than linger. He taps one flat rock, turns it, fits it, and nods only when it lies properly. Some swear that a roadstone placed carelessly remembers the insult and rolls under a traveller's foot months later. No one can quite agree whether this is superstition or simply a fine way to frighten lazy hands into better work. Either way, you become very respectful towards stones. At midday, people rest in the shade of a low wall. Food bundles open with a softness that feels almost holy. Potatoes, dried maize, coca leaves, and a little chicha pass among the workers. A woman pours the first drops onto the earth. A man lifts coca leaves toward the bright sky before tucking them into his cheek. The sun above seems less like a distant fire and more like a lord whose hall has no roof. You think of beeswax candles before saints and monks chanting beneath soot-black beams. Here, light itself watches the labour. The pilgrim explains that some fields belong to households, some to sacred powers, some to the state. When state fields call, people come. When temple work calls, people come. When road stones loosen or bridges need new fibre, people come. It is not freedom as a wandering minstrel might sing it, nor slavery as a frightened rumour might make it. Even now, it is hard to tell, from one tired pair of eyes, where duty ends and burden begins. The workers joke, complain, share food, and keep working because the road must hold. In the afternoon, you follow a smaller group toward a field set aside for imperial use. Men press digging tools into earth. Women sort seed and carry baskets. A young worker sings under his breath, and others answer with short phrases that keep the pace. The sound reminds you of the loom in the house, the spindle turning, the channel water whispering through terraces. The Empire may command, but ordinary people provide the rhythm. An official watches with a knotted cord in hand, speaking now and then to a local leader. He does not shout. He does not need to. Everyone knows the obligation has weight. A missing worker is not merely absent. A household has failed a thread in the larger cloth. Those who tell the tale never fully agree whether such officials are feared more for their power, their memory, or their ability to notice exactly who leaned on a tool too long. By late afternoon, your arms ache. Dust settles into the lines of your palms. You long for the hearth of the household, for warm potatoes, for the guinea pigs rustling like little judges in the corner. The dog has found shade beneath a stone ledge and contributed nothing visible to imperial labour, which seems unsurprising. Before leaving, the workers gather near a small roadside shrine. The headman places coca leaves there, along with a twist of yarn and a pinch of maize flour. No gold flashes, no priest lifts a jewelled cup, yet everyone grows quiet. This work has taken strength from bodies, time from households, and food from bundles prepared before dawn. The offering seems to say that the debt has been seen by earth, road, sun, and ancestors. Evening cools the valley. The road behind you lies mended, its stones fitted, its channels cleared. It looks as if it has always been so, which is the strange fate of good labour once finished. It disappears into usefulness. You walk back with the others in a tired line. No coins weigh in anyone's purse. No market bell rings. Yet something has been paid. As the first stars appear, you understand a little more of the ordinary life around you. A family belongs to its hearth, its fields, its élu, its dead, its mountains, and also to a power that reaches down the road like a hand made of stone. You return under that hand, weary and quiet, while the dog trots ahead. The pilgrim's shell glimmers faintly, and the sun slips behind the high ridge without saying whether it is satisfied. The road climbs again after the day of labour, and by morning your body has become a ledger of small complaints. Your shoulders remember the basket of stones. Your palms remember the rough edges. Your knees, always eager to give testimony, remember every upward step. Yet the villagers walk with the same steady patience as before, bundles balanced, cloaks drawn close, breath clouding in the cold air. The dog trots ahead, tail lifted, as if he personally supervised the repair of the imperial road and found the human effort barely adequate. The pilgrim leads you along a ridge where the wind has no manners. It slips under your cloak, presses icy fingers against your ribs. and steals warmth from your ears with the confidence of a tax collector. Below, the valley lies patched with terraces, smoke, and thin water channels. Above, the mountains lift their white heads into clouds. Somewhere behind you, the mended road waits for runners and caravans. Somewhere ahead, stone buildings stand against the slope in long, orderly rows. At first, you mistake them for houses. Then you notice their placement high, dry, and exposed to moving air. Their walls are stone, their roofs neat, their doorways small. They do not gather around hearth smoke or family chatter. They stand apart, cool and watchful, as if the mountain itself has built a pantry and warned everyone not to touch the good jars before winter. The pilgrim says the word kolka, storehouses. You stop a little below them and look up. The wind moves through the grass with a dry hiss. Men and women carry baskets toward the buildings. An official stands near the first doorway with attendants beside him, and another man holds a cord bundle carefully in both hands. You have seen abbey storehouses in your own world, where grain lies under lock and key, guarded by monks who can detect a missing sack of barley with the spiritual sensitivity of saints and the suspicion of hungry cats. Here, there are no iron-banded oak doors like those in a manor cellar, yet the sense of counting is just as sharp. The kolka hold what ordinary hands have made and gathered maize dried hard as little teeth, potatoes turned to chunyo by frost and sun, quinoa, dried meat, sandals, tools, wool, cloth folded in tight bundles, perhaps weapons, perhaps rope, perhaps things meant for hunger, war, ceremony, or travellers who have not yet arrived. Each object seems plain alone. Together, they become the empire's breath held in reserve. You join a line carrying baskets of dried potatoes. The basket is lighter than stone, and for this you are grateful enough to feel almost holy. At the doorway, a keeper reaches inside, lifts a handful, smells it, turns it in his palm, and nods. Another person calls out. The man with the cord bundle listens. His fingers move across hanging strings, finding knots, touching them with care. He does not look like a scribe, yet he has the grave face of one. Instead of parchment, ink and candle soot. He has coloured cords and memory. Even now, it is hard to tell whether he is counting food, guarding truth, or persuading both to remain obedient. You are not allowed to touch the cord. This is wise. A woman beside you whispers that a careless hand on a record cord can confuse a season, or a storehouse, or an official's temper, which may be the most dangerous of the three. Some swear that knots remember the fingers that tied them, and that a dishonest keeper will dream of tangled cords until he confesses. No one can quite agree whether this is sacred warning, village gossip, or a convenient way to keep young hands away from important bundles. Inside the kolka, the air is cool and dry. You duck through the doorway and find yourself in a dim space smelling of stone, dust, maize, old fibre, and the faint sweetness of stored food. Light slips through the small entrance behind you. The floor is raised and clean. Goods are stacked with such care that you hesitate to breathe too boldly near them. Cloth bundles rest together. Food lies separated and protected. Tools are arranged where they can be found. There is no cosy disorder here. No hearth ash, no guinea pigs rustling like household judges. This place belongs to preparedness. A keeper shows how air moves through the storehouse, how dryness matters, how food must be turned, checked, guarded from damp and rot. In your old villages, people hang herbs above doors, smoke meat in rafters, tuck apples into straw, salt fish, and prey mice develop a sudden interest in fasting. Here, the work is larger, but the fear is familiar. Winter, drought, frost, pests, bad roads, sick animals, failed fields, all these are old enemies with many names. Outside, more goods arrive. A group brings sandals woven from fibre, stacked in pairs and tied. You hold one when it is passed to you, light but strong, shaped by hands that know the road wears everything down eventually. Another bundle holds cloth, not the bright household weaving of last night's hearth, but plainer, measured, destined perhaps for workers, soldiers, messengers, or offerings. A man checks each bundle, touches the knots of a small cord, and speaks to the official. The official is not unkind, but no one relaxes near him. He wears fine cloth and carries authority the way a gatehouse carries shadow. People answer carefully. They do not bow like peasants before a lord in a castle hall, but they understand that he belongs to the reach of Cusco, to rules, roads, labour, and storage. Those who tell the tale never fully agree whether such men are more useful than feared, or more feared than useful. Watching him count baskets with calm eyes, you suspect both answers keep good company. At midday, workers sit below the storehouses where the wind is gentler. Food is shared from personal bundles, not from the kolkha. That distinction is clear. The storehouse food is not for casual hunger, not for a traveller who skipped breakfast, not for a dog who sits too close pretending innocence. It belongs to need defined by authority, famine, duty, road work, armies, ceremonies, emergencies, and perhaps mercy when the right person approves it. The old woman from the village arrives with a bundle of dried herbs tied in yellow fibre. She speaks with a keeper, who laughs softly and touches one herb to his nose. It is said, the pilgrim tells you, that certain bitter leaves placed near stored maize discourage small pests, and that a charm of woven grass hung inside a doorway reminds abundance not to wander away. Even now, it is hard to tell whether abundance listens, but everyone agrees pests do. By afternoon, clouds gather low along the peaks. The kolkha stand bright against a darkening sky, their walls catching the last sun. You carry one final basket inside. For a moment, alone in the dimness, you lay your hand near a stack of chunyo and feel the silence of stored survival. These are not treasures that glitter. They are better than that. They are meals not yet eaten, sandals not yet worn through, cloth not yet wrapped around cold shoulders, tools not yet fitted to tired hands. When you step outside, the wind strikes your face clean and sharp. The official's attendants tie up the cord bundles. The doorways are closed. The people begin descending toward the village, lighter now, though not richer in coin. You think of the iron key in your pack from the Impossible Inn, and of all the locked rooms of your old world. Here, security is stone, height, dryness, record, duty, and watchful memory. Below, hearth smoke waits. Above, the kolkha keep their silent guard in the wind, holding the labour of ordinary people until hunger, command, or ceremony calls it back into the world. You descend from the storehouses while the wind follows, tugging at cloaks and loose cords as if trying to read what people carry. Behind you, the kolkha stand high and silent, their small doorways dark in the mountain light. Ahead, the village waits below with its smoke, its hearths, its water channels, and the old dog trotting first, clearly convinced that all legal matters should begin and end with whether he has been fed. By late afternoon, people gather in an open space near the headman's house. It is not a manor court of your old world, with a lord steward seated beneath a smoky beam, rushes underfoot, villagers clutching caps, and someone being fined because his pig expressed political opinions in the barley. Yet the feeling is familiar. A community has questions. Someone owes something. Someone remembers a promise differently. Someone has brought witnesses, which is always a sign that supper may be late. The headman sits on a low stone near the wall. Beside him stands the cord keeper from the storehouses, holding a bundle of quipu with the care of a monk carrying a relic no one fully trusts, but everyone still kisses. The cords hang in colours brown, cream, red, yellow, black, and others faded by use. Knots sit along them at different places, some clustered, some lonely, some tight as seeds. You look at them and feel the same helpless awe you once felt watching a scribe turn goose scratches into Latin. Your eyes see string, his fingers see memory. A woman steps forward first. She speaks calmly, though her mouth is tight. The matter concerns a field boundary, a broken water turn, and a row of potatoes that seem to have wandered into the wrong household's claim, though potatoes, as far as anyone admits, rarely move without help. Her neighbour answers with equal calm and far more hand gestures. The headman listens. Others murmur. The quipu keeper lowers his eyes to the cords and runs his fingers over knots. No one can quite agree whether the quipu speaks like writing, remembers like a trained mind, or simply helps the keeper awaken what he already knows. Even now, it is hard to tell where the record ends and the person begins. The knots do not open their secrets to you. They remain tight, coloured, and smug. A witness is called an older man whose back bends like a bow left strung too long. He remembers when the terrace wall was repaired after a season of heavy rain. He points with his staff. Another witness remembers who carried stones. A third remembers who brought chicha and who drank more than was wise. This last part may not be legally important, but village memory is a generous pot. Unnecessary ingredients often float to the top. The headman speaks slowly. The woman must receive her proper water turn. The neighbour must help mend the channel wall before the next planting. A small offering is to be made at the field stone, not because the stone needs payment, the pilgrim whispers, but because people behave better when the earth is asked to listen. Some swear that boundaries marked with offerings stay peaceful longer than boundaries marked only with anger. Those who tell the tale never fully agree whether the spirits prevent quarrels or whether the ceremony simply gives quarrels time to cool. Next comes a promise of labour. A younger man has failed to appear for a day of road work, claiming illness in the knees, the belly, and possibly the weather. Several people glance at him with the soft cruelty of neighbours who have seen him dancing 3 nights before. He stands with his head lowered. The official from the storehouses is not present, but his shadow seems to be. The headman asks questions. The quipu keeper touches a chord. The missing day is remembered, not guessed. Not forgiven into mist, remembered. In your own medieval villages, a man might avoid duty by hiding in a cousin's hayloft, limping dramatically before the reeve, or claiming that St. Swithin sent rain directly into his bones. Here, excuses also have legs, but records walk faster. The young man must serve an extra day repairing a section of path above the lower terraces. He accepts this without protest, though his ears redden. The dog yawns, perhaps approving the sentence. The matter after that is quieter. A widow speaks of cloth owed to her by kin after her husband's death. Folded textiles are brought out and laid on a clean-woven mat. The headman's wife examines them, pressing corners, counting pieces, judging quality by touch. The quipu keeper watches, then moves his fingers along a pale cord. Cloth here is not merely cloth. You know this now. It is labour, warmth, duty, rank, memory, and sometimes apology. A poor piece given for a fine debt would insult both the living and the dead, and possibly the loom as well. The widow receives 2 folded lengths and a promise of help with her roof before the cold rains. She does not smile, but her shoulders loosen. The old woman from your host house murmurs a phrase and touches the widow's sleeve. Some say that a promise spoken over cloth binds better than a promise spoken over bare ground, because thread remembers the pull of many hands. No one can quite agree whether this is law, comfort, or the kind of saying grandmothers preserve because it is useful. As dusk lowers, one final dispute rises from the edge of the gathering, a missing basket of dried maize. This produces more interest than all earlier matters combined. Food, unlike pride, can be counted in bowls. A man insists he left the basket near the drying rack. His cousin insists the basket was already half empty. A woman says a child saw a llama nosing around it. The llama, absent from court, cannot defend itself and is therefore widely suspected. The headman does not rush. He asks who tied the basket. He asks what cord was used. He asks whether the knot was a double twist or a common loop. At this, the old woman laughs softly and says she tied it herself with a crooked knot because her thumb ached that morning. The basket is found soon after behind a storage wall, dragged there not by thief or llama but by a loose strap and a slope. The village exhales. The llama's reputation remains uncertain. Night gathers blue between the houses. The Quipa keeper winds the cords carefully and wraps them in cloth. You watch his hands until the last knot disappears. In a world without parchment records for every quarrel, without iron keys on every chest, without coins passing palm to palm, memory must be trained, shared, checked, knotted, witnessed, and spoken aloud. Law here is not only command from far Cusco, it is also the headman's patience, the widow's cloth, the repaired channel, the extra workday, the remembered knot, the offering at the field stone. You return to the household under a sky bright with early stars. The hearth is already alive. The guinea pigs rustle. The dog slips inside first, innocent of all May's crimes. You sit near the fire with tired hands and a quiet mind, thinking of scribes in candlelit rooms, of monks scratching records in ink, of manor courts smelling of damp wool and old rushes. Then you think of coloured cords resting in darkness, holding numbers, duties, debts, promises, and the fragile peace of ordinary people who must wake tomorrow and keep living beside one another. The morning after the village disputes, peace returns not with a trumpet, but with the small sounds of people trusting each other just enough to begin again. The widow's folded cloth lies inside her doorway. The repaired promise about the water channel has already become a plan. The accused llama stands chewing near a wall, wearing the calm face of an animal who knows history will never fully clear his name. You step outside into pale light with smoke in your hair and a hearth warmth still tucked under your cloak. The old woman presses a small bundle into your hands, a twist of dried maize, a few leaves, and a cord tied in a crooked knot. Perhaps the very style that saved the village from blaming a llama too confidently. She points toward the lane, where neighbours are already moving between houses. This is not a market day, at least not as you know markets. There are no stalls under striped cloth, no tollman at a gate, no alewife shouting that her measure is honest while standing beside a barrel that looks morally uncertain. There is no clink of pennies, no bargaining over smoked fish, no monk pretending he is not interested in the price of honey. Yet value moves everywhere. A woman carries a bowl of thick mash to the widow's house. She does not announce charity. She simply leaves it near the door and receives, in return, a handful of dyed thread later in the morning. A man brings a repaired sandal strap to his cousin and leaves with a bundle of dried fuel. 2 young workers help lift a roof beam into place, and afterward their mother receives potatoes from the household they helped. Nothing looks like buying. Nothing looks like selling. Still, every hand remembers the weight of what has passed through it. The pilgrim walks beside you, his red thread shell clicking softly against a bead at his throat. Here, he murmurs, people trade less with coins than with obligation. You nod, though your mind reaches back to muddy town squares where bakers guard loaves like secrets. Fishmongers slap scales from their sleeves, and every bridge seems to require a fee from someone who did not build it. In this high village, exchange is quieter and more tangled. It flows through kinship, neighbour duty, state demand, seasonal need, and the old fear that one day your own basket may be empty. No one can quite agree whether generosity begins from love, custom, pride, or terror of being gossiped about until the mountains themselves grow tired of hearing it. As usual, the safest answer is all of them. Near the water channel, you help carry stones for a man who helped your host household during harvest. He gives no order. He only lifts one end of a wooden trough and looks at you. You lift the other. The trough is heavier than it appears, because objects in pre-modern life often hide their true wickedness until your fingers are committed. You carry it to a terrace edge, where water must be guided around a loose patch of soil. The man thanks you by placing 2 coca leaves in your palm and tapping his chest. You have received no coin, but you feel paid. Later, beside a low wall, women sort wool and talk in voices soft enough to seem harmless, which is how the strongest village news travels. A spindle passes from one hand to another. Someone admires a newly dyed thread. Someone else mentions that the young man sentenced to extra road work has suddenly developed excellent knees. Laughter moves through the group, brief and warm. The old woman trades a pouch of bitter herbs for a length of plain cord. She tells you the herbs keep moths from cloth, or perhaps envy from doorways. Those who tell the tale never fully agree, and the old woman does not appear troubled by this. A remedy that protects against either moths or envy is useful enough. You sit nearby and help win cord again, a task for which your reputation has improved from dangerous to tolerable. The dog lies in the sun, nose on paws, watching all exchange with the steady eye of a tax official who accepts payment in scraps. A laugh rises at the edge of the lane, then vanishes behind a house, and the sound folds into the ordinary music of morning water, wool, stone, breath, and far llama bells. At midday, several households gather near a shared cooking place. Not a feast, not a ceremony, not yet the larger joy that sometimes fills a village with music and chicha, but a simple joining of food because work has overlapped, and hunger is easier when bowls are near one another. Potatoes are tipped into ash, maize cakes warm on flat stones. A little dried meat is shaved thin so its flavour travels farther than its size should allow, in your old world. Pottage stretches a handful of peas into a miracle of endurance. Here, the pot performs the same humble magic with mountain ingredients. A woman offers you a small charm made of braided yarn and a seed. She ties it to your pack without asking much permission. Some swear such little knots keep travellers from losing their way, especially when the road passes shrines, officials, bridges, and dogs with mysterious loyalties. Even now, it is hard to tell whether the charm protects the traveller, marks the traveller as someone worth helping, or merely gives grandmothers a reason to improve your appearance. You accept the improvement. In return, you search your pack and find the half-burned beeswax candle from the inn. Its wax has softened and hardened again through many changes of air. You hesitate, then give it to her. Beeswax is not common here, and she turns it over with grave curiosity. The pilgrim watches but says nothing. The iron key remains in your pack, heavy and useless, a memory of oak doors from a world where value prefers locks. The candle, at least, can still become light. The woman touches the candle to her forehead, then sets it beside a clay bowl near the wall. You do not know whether you have given a practical object, a strange foreign trinket, or a tiny problem for later explanation. No one can quite agree whether gifts are ever only gifts. They carry the hand that gave them, the road they crossed, the witness of those who saw, and the expectation that kindness should not stop moving. Afternoon drifts into small errands. You follow the old woman to a neighbouring house where a cracked pot waits for repair with resin and fibre. In exchange, she receives a story about weather signs from the upper ridge clouds snagging on a white peak. Birds flying low, a taste of metal in the wind. This too is trade. A warning may feed a family as surely as maize. A remembered path may save sandals. A joke may soften a debt. A song may keep workers stepping together when the hill is cruel. By evening, the village seems less like a cluster of separate homes and more like a woven cloth stretched over earth. Threads cross everywhere. Food for labour, labour for cloth, cloth for duty, herbs for cord, news for welcome, gifts for memory, favours for favours not yet needed. You sit outside your host house while smoke rises through violet dusk, and the dog leans against your ankle as if this arrangement was always his idea. Inside, the hearth begins to glow. The guinea pigs rustle. Somewhere, someone tests a flute note and lets it fall away. The old woman places your maize bundle near the cooking stones, not as payment, not exactly as thanks, but as one more small thing folded into the household's keeping. You understand then that ordinary life here is not empty without coins. It is full of accounts too human to fit in a purse, held in memory, knots, gossip, obligation, and warm bowls passed hand to hand before the night grows cold. The next morning begins with a different kind of stirring. No one says feast at first, not in the loud way a castle cook might shout across a yard while boys chase geese, and a steward counts trenchers, as if bread itself plans treason. Here, the change is quieter. Mats are shaken more carefully. Hair is braided with brighter thread. Cloth bundles are opened from corners where they have slept folded and guarded. The old woman lifts a tunic whose colours seem to have been saving sunlight for this very day. You sit near the hearth while steam rises from a pot, and the guinea pigs rustle in their corner, perhaps sensing unusual importance, or perhaps merely noticing that more food than usual is being handled within reach. The dog circles the doorway with formal concern. Outside, the village lane fills with footsteps. People carry baskets of maize, potatoes, herbs, and drinking vessels. A man passes with a flute tucked under his arm. Two women carry folded cloth so fine that everyone near them straightens a little. The pilgrim ties his red thread shell more neatly at his throat. A day for the sun, he says. You look toward the doorway, where morning light spills over packed earth. In your old world, holy days arrive with monastery bells, beeswax candles, saints' relics, ale stronger than usual, and at least one man insisting he's not drunk but spiritually enthusiastic. Here, the sacred timing belongs to another sky. The sun climbs the eastern ridge slowly, touching the terraces first, then the roofs, then the faces of those gathered in the open space below the village. No one can quite agree whether the sun sees every household equally, or whether it looks longest at those who rise early, work hard, and remember the proper offerings. Still, everyone behaves as if being noticed matters. You follow the household downhill. The open ground has changed since yesterday. A place near the centre has been swept clean. Stones are arranged in a small, careful shape. Bowls wait with maize flour, coca leaves, chicha, and bits of bright yarn. A bundle wrapped in old cloth rests near the headman's family, handled with such quiet seriousness that you do not ask about it too quickly. Those who tell the tale never fully agree whether such ancestor bundles hold the dead themselves, the memory of the dead, or the household's courage to keep speaking with them. Whatever the answer, no one turns their back on it casually. People gather in woven colour. Men wear bands at their heads. Women's shawls catch the sun. Children remain near the edges of families, half hidden among skirts and shadows, while the main circle belongs to working hands, elder voices, and faces lined by weather. The widow from the dispute stands wrapped in one of her newly received cloths. The young man with the famous knees appears freshly useful and very humble. The accused lama, tied at a safe distance, chews with the calm of one who has survived public suspicion. The ceremony begins without shouting. The headman steps forward. He lifts a cup of chicha and pours the first drink to the earth. The liquid darkens dust, then vanishes. He raises coca leaves toward the sun. Others do the same. You feel the gesture move through the gathering like a breath. Back in a stone chapel, a priest might lift a chalice beneath painted saints while incense curls into rafters. Here, the roof is the whole blue sky. The incense is cold morning smoke. And the altar seems to be every field that has ever fed a body. A song begins low. At first it is only one voice, thin as water starting through a channel. Then another joins, and another, until the sound grows round and steady. Flutes enter softly, then drums, their rhythm slow enough for tired feet and old bones. You stand at the edge of the circle, feeling the beat in your ribs. It is not a wild noise. It is measured, almost drowsy, like the village remembering itself aloud. Then people begin to dance. They move in lines and circles, not leaping as court dancers might before a lord's high table, not stumbling as alehouse guests do when the floor rushes up to greet them, but stepping with patient weight. Dust lifts around ankles, cloth swings, bells on animal tack chime from the edge of the gathering. The old woman takes your wrist and pulls you gently into the outer line. This is alarming. You do your best. Your feet know muddy roads, manor yards, frozen paths, and the deeply ungraceful crossing of a rope bridge. They do not know this rhythm. For several breaths you step too soon, then too late, then with the solemn panic of a person trying not to offend the sun. The old woman squeezes your wrist once, steadying you. The dog watches from the shade with evident disappointment but no surprise. The dance continues. Step, pause, turn, step, pause, turn. Your body slowly stops arguing. Around you, faces soften. The widow sings. The young man laughs when an elder deliberately bumps him off rhythm. A woman pours chicha into cups and passes them carefully. Someone places roasted potatoes on a woven cloth. Someone else sprinkles maize flour near the stones. Joy here does not float free from duty. It grows directly out of it, like maize from a field everyone had to weed. At midday, food is shared more generously than on work days. Bowls move from hand to hand. Chicha warms the gathering. A man tells a story of an ancestor who once argued with thunder and won only because thunder grew bored. Another insists the tale is wrong. The ancestor did not win, but hid under a cloak until the storm passed. No one can quite agree, and perhaps that is why the story survives. Certain tales, like certain stews, become richer when everyone adds something they are not supposed to. The ancestor bundle is brought nearer the offerings. The old woman lowers her head. Others murmur names. You think of relics in distant chapels, of bones wrapped in silk, of pilgrims pressing lips to glass and hoping holiness travels through hard surfaces. Here, the dead seem closer to the cooking fire than to any jewelled shrine. They are spoken to like stern relatives who still care whether the roof leaks, whether the potatoes are stored, and whether the living are behaving with enough sense to deserve another season. Afternoon lengthens in gold. The dancing slows, then returns, then slows again. People rest against walls, drink, talk, mend a strap, adjust a child's shawl, refill bowls, laugh softly at old jokes that apparently improve each time they are repeated. The pilgrim sits beside you in the shade, chewing coca leaves and watching the circle. Is it celebration, you ask, or obligation? He smiles without looking at you. Yes. It is an annoyingly fair answer. As the sun lowers, final offerings are placed near the stone's coca leaves, drops of chicha, maize, yarn, breath, memory. A hush falls. Even the dog seems briefly respectful, though he may simply be waiting for someone to drop food. The headman speaks words you do not fully understand, but their shape feels familiar thanks for what has been given, request for what must still come, remembrance of those before, promise from those present. Dusk gathers around the village. The bright cloths dim, smoke rises from the houses, feet grow tired, voices soften, yet the warmth of the day lingers in everyone, not loud now, but steady. You return uphill with the household, your steps dusty, your head full of song. Behind you, the swept ground holds the marks of dancing feet, Above you, the first star appears where the sun has gone, and the village carries its joy back indoors like an ember saved carefully for morning. The festival leaves the village softer the next morning, as if songs have settled into the thatch and Chicha has made even the stones a little more forgiving. You wake late by the standards of people who have already risen, stirred coals, checked baskets, led animals out, and judged the sky. The hearth glows low, a clay pot steams. The old woman sits near the doorway sorting herbs into small piles on a woven mat, her fingers moving with the calm authority of someone who knows which leaf comforts a stomach, which root warms a joint, and which bundle is mostly useful because frightened people need something to hold. Outside, the air tastes of cold ash and sunlit dust. The dog waits in the lane, looking unusually serious. This, you have learned, is not necessarily meaningful. The dog also looks serious before stealing potato skins. But a hush moves through the nearby houses. Voices are lower. Footsteps gather toward the dwelling of a family near the water channel, where smoke rises but no one laughs. You follow the old woman, carrying a small clay bowl and a bundle of dried leaves tied with yellow fibre. The pilgrim walks behind you, quiet beneath his patched cloak. Yesterday, the village danced beneath the sun. Today, it remembers that bodies are made of softer things than songs. Inside the house, a young woman sits wrapped in wool near the hearth, her face pale with weariness. Beside her, an elder rubs her hands between both palms to warm them. A pot of water breathes steam into the room. Bundles of herbs hang from a roof beam. A midwife kneels nearby, compact and steady, with a pouch of tools, cords, folded cloth, and small charms tucked close at her belt. No one can quite agree whether her greatest skill lies in her hands, her memory, her courage, or the way she can make an entire room obey without raising her voice. You're not told every detail, and you do not need to be. Some parts of life are kept inside the circle of women, kin, heat, and whispered instruction. You sit near the wall, useful only as a holder of things, which is still better than being decorative. The midwife takes the bowl from you, adds hot water, crumbles herbs into it, and lets the steam rise. The scent is bitter, green, and sharp enough to clear the back of your head. She murmurs over the steam. Then has the young woman breathed gently. In your old world, a village healer might tie red thread around a wrist, lay a charm beneath a pillow, bleed a fevered man with leeches, or hang garlic near a bed because illness, like tax collectors, dislikes being greeted directly. Here, herbs, warmth, breath, coca leaves, and mountain prayers sit together without embarrassment. Even now, it is hard to tell whether the cure belongs to the plant, the words, the hands, the patient's strength, or the comfort of being surrounded by people who refuse to let fear sit alone. The old woman places coca leaves on a cloth and studies them. She does not toss them like dice. She arranges them, watches how they lie, lifts one, turns another, and frowns at a torn edge. Some swear that coca leaves show the path of sickness, whether it comes from cold, fright, envy, broken custom, or a wind that has wandered down from an unhappy peak. Those who tell the tale never fully agree whether the leaves speak, or whether the reader already knows how to listen to what everyone else has missed. A child coughs in the neighbouring doorway, and an aunt appears with a cup of warm drink. She has tied a little charm of yarn and seed above the threshold. The charm sways in the smoke. You remember the bent pins at the roadside shrine of your first morning, the half-trusted relics in chapels, the iron nails placed beneath thresholds to bar ill luck. Here, a charm may keep away a harmful breath, a jealous glance, or whatever name people give to worry when it enters a house and refuses to leave. By midday, the young woman sleeps. The room exhales. Someone adds fuel to the fire. Someone else carries out a bowl of used herbs and pours it at the base of a stone beyond the door. Nothing is simply thrown away. Remedies, like food, labour, and promises, must return somewhere properly. The midwife washes her hands carefully, then rubs them with an aromatic leaf. She accepts a small bundle of potatoes from the family, not like a fee counted on a counter, but like one thread of obligation passing into another. You step outside with the pilgrim. Clouds gather around a high peak, wrapping and unwrapping it in pale veils. A man nearby watches the movement with narrowed eyes. He says the afternoon may bring cold rain. Another disagrees, claiming the birds have not dipped low enough. The old woman clicks her tongue and points to the way smoke leans from the roofs. Weather is red here from sky, bird, smoke, ache, frost, lemma mood, and the private opinions of knees. No one can quite agree which sign is most reliable, though everyone agrees that ignoring all of them is the habit of fools and visitors. In the afternoon, you accompany the healer to a field edge where an older worker complains of pain in his shoulder after lifting stones for the road. He sits on a flat rock, cloak open to the sun. The healer warms her hands, presses along the muscle, and applies a paste of crushed leaves and fat that smells strong enough to make the dog reconsider friendship. The man winces, then sighs. A cord is tied loosely around his upper arm, not to bind tightly, but to remind him not to work too hard before sunset. This is perhaps the most optimistic charm you have seen. The pilgrim tells you that sickness here may be treated with plants, rest, heat, massage, offerings, and divination, but also with the practical wisdom of neighbours who notice when someone has eaten poorly, slept cold, carried too much, or grieved too quietly. You think of monastery infirmaries with straw beds and herb gardens, of infirm monks drinking bitter brews beneath painted saints, of leeches waiting in jars like damp little physicians. Different worlds, same hope that pain can be named. Softened, bargained with, or at least kept company through the night. As evening comes, the old woman returns to the first house and checks on the sleeping patient. The young woman's breathing has eased. The room remains dim and warm. Near the hearth, the midwife has left a small packet of herbs, instructions for the family, and a warning that everyone seems to understand without wanting it repeated. The dog lies outside the door now, guarding or pretending to guard, his muzzle on his paws. Back at your host house, supper is quieter than on the festival night. Potatoes are shared, maize is warmed, and a thin herbal drink passes around the hearth. The old woman finally lights the half-burned beeswax candle you gave away, and its small flame trembles beside the clay bowl. For a moment, your first roadside lodging, with its damp straw and smoke-black rafters, seems to flicker inside this mountain home. The world's touch in that light saint's candles and coca leaves. Monastery bells and llama bells, iron keys and woven charms, leeches and bitter herbs, fear and care. You lie down beneath your wool blanket while the candle burns low. Outside, the clouds slide from the peak, leaving stars behind. Inside, the hearth settles. The village sleeps around its sick, its healers, its remedies, and its old stories, trusting that morning will come with warm coals, watchful hands, and another chance for the body to find its way back to balance. The morning after the healer's candle burns low, the village rises under a sky washed clean by night wind. The clouds have left the high peak, and frost lies pale on the thatch, on the terrace stones, and along the narrow water channel where the first light trembles. You wake with the smell of herbs still clinging to your blanket, and the memory of the young woman's eased breathing resting quietly in the room. The half-burned beeswax candle has gone out beside the clay bowl, leaving a little pool of foreign wax that the old woman examines as if it may have dreamed something useful. Today, the household does not go first to the fields. Bundles are lifted from the wall, cloth is folded, A jar of chicha is stoppered and wrapped. Dried maize, coca leaves, and a small length of woven cloth are placed in a carrying net. The dog watches this preparation with deep alarm, because in his experience all bundles should contain food for him, or explanations for why they do not. The pilgrim tells you that the path leads to a provincial centre, a place where the empire gathers itself more visibly than on terraces, in storehouses, or along roads. Cusco is far away, beyond ridges and valleys you cannot count. Yet its reach comes here through officials, priests, soldiers, records, ceremonies, and the quiet fear of doing things incorrectly. In your old world, a king's power may arrive as a tax collector, a seal pressed into wax, a herald in a damp cloak, or a knight who expects everyone to admire his horse. Here, power walks in woven cloth, counted labour, polished stone, and eyes that notice. You leave after the first meal. The village recedes behind you, hearth smoke thinning into blue air. The old woman walks with the household, straight-backed despite the climb, carrying the wrapped chicha jar as carefully as a monk bearing a relic through a chapel full of elbows. Some swear that a jar meant for offering must not be set down carelessly on bare earth, or its spirit grows offended and the drink turns sour in mood if not in taste. No one can quite agree whether chicha has moods, but everyone treats the jar with respect. The road widens as you approach the centre. More people join from side paths, farmers in plain tunics, women with bundles of cloth, llama handlers guiding animals under balanced loads, young workers carrying tools, elders wrapped in wool against the wind. They do not chatter as freely as they do near the household hearth. Voices lower, feet fall into order. The dog, perhaps sensing rank, walks closer to your leg and pretends he has always been well behaved. By midday, the provincial centre appears on a broad shelf of land above the valley. Stone buildings stand in clean lines, their walls fitted with a precision that makes your memory of crooked medieval cottages feel suddenly apologetic. A large open plaza lies at the heart of it. Around it rise storehouses, administrative rooms, lodging spaces, and sacred places whose doors and thresholds seem to say, quite politely, that not every foot may cross. The roofs are thatched, but the stonework below them is stern and exact. Even the shadows look organised. You enter with the others and feel the air change. This is not the intimate warmth of the Ailu, where a crooked knot can save a llama's reputation, and an old woman's glance can settle a room. This is a wider order. Officials stand beneath awnings, runners arrive and depart, soldiers wait near a wall with spears and shields, not threatening anyone, simply present in the way a locked oak door is present in a manor house. Priests in finer garments move near a sacred enclosure, carrying bowls, leaves, and cloth. Nobles pass at a measured pace, their clothing brighter, their bearing practised, their ears heavy with ornaments that mark them as people accustomed to being noticed. You lower your eyes because everyone else does. The headman leads your group toward a shaded place where offerings are received. Goods are not flung into a heap, they are presented, inspected, named, and remembered. The jar of chicha is set down with care. The folded cloth is lifted by an attendant who tests its weave between finger and thumb. Maize is poured into a bowl. Coca leaves are arranged green and shining on a flat stone. Nearby, a quipu keeper touches chords while another official listens. The scene is quieter than a market and more serious than a feast. It has the calm of a monastery counting rents, except here the records hang in knots instead of lying in ink, and no one smells of damp parchment. A priest steps forward and lifts coca leaves toward the sunlit sky. His voice is low, others bow their heads. The offerings are not grand treasures from a king's chamber, not jewelled cups or silver plates, but the things ordinary people know most deeply: food, drink, cloth, labour made visible. These are sacrificed in the gentler sense of being set apart, given upward and outward, removed from common use so that order between people, ancestors, Earth, sun, and empire may remain unfrayed. Those who tell the tale never fully agree whether the gods need these things, whether officials need the ceremony, or whether ordinary hearts need to see their labour honoured before it disappears into command. You stand in the outer edge of the gathering. The sun falls hard on the plaza stones. Dust lifts around sandals. A soldier glances over the crowd, his face unreadable. He is not cruel, at least not in this moment. But the spear in his hand is a reminder that order has sharper teeth than custom alone. You think of manor courts, market tolls, gatehouse guards, and abbots with keys at their belts. Every world finds a way to ask ordinary people to stand in line. After the offering, the commoners wait while headmen speak with officials. Waiting is one of the great labours of any empire. You wait in sun, then in shade, then in sun again. A woman beside you adjusts a strap on her bundle and mutters that the plaza stones are harder than honest work. Her husband tells her softly that stones do not report complaints. She replies that officials might, and both fall quiet. The dog lies under a wall. Having discovered that imperial dignity improves when observed from a comfortable angle, near the sacred enclosure, a procession passes. Priests carry bowls and folded cloth. A noble woman walks behind them, her mantle bright, her face still as carved wood. People watch without staring too openly. No one can quite agree whether such nobles live closer to the sun, closer to danger, or merely closer to better food. From where you stand, they seem both human and distant, like figures painted high on a chapel wall visible, important, and unlikely to help you mend a sandal. Later, a group of workers is assigned to carry loads toward another storehouse. Your village headman nods to several men, and you go with them, because by now your life has become a series of being handed things. The load is cloth this time, bundled tight. You carry it across the plaza and into a cool room where shelves and stacked goods wait. An attendant checks each bundle. Another marks the delivery with knots. The work is simple, but every movement happens under eyes trained to notice. The Empire does not need to shout when everyone has learned to hear its silence. In the late afternoon, your group is released. The headman's shoulders loosen only after you pass beyond the main plaza. People speak more freely on the road down, though softly at first, as if the fitted stones behind you may repeat words uphill. The old woman says the offering was accepted well. A man says the official with the narrow face counted too slowly. Someone else says slow counting is better than wrong counting. Some swear that if an official miscounts sacred goods. He dreams of empty storehouses and wakes with cold hands. Even now, it is hard to tell whether this is belief, warning, or simple hope. The sun lowers behind the ridges, and the provincial centre glows briefly above you, its walls golden, its shadows long. It looks less like a village than a thought made from stone order, distance, duty, power. Yet the people descending from it carry ordinary things again, empty jars, loosened straps, tired feet, private jokes, and the hope of supper. Cusco remains unseen, far beyond mountains, but you have felt its weight in the plaza. You return toward the smaller smoke of the isla. Grateful for the thought of a low doorway, a clay hearth, wool blankets, and a dog who, despite everything, understands the Empire mainly as a place where someone might drop food. By the time you return from the provincial centre, the evening has already begun folding itself into the valley. The great order of fitted plaza stones, officials, priests, and quiet authority remains behind you on its shelf of land, glowing faintly in memory like a polished blade laid away in shadow. Ahead, the Ayla waits in smaller lights. Hearth smoke rises from low roofs. Water murmurs along the channel. The terraces, which by day seem carved by command and patience, now become dark steps for the stars to descend. You walk more slowly than before. Everyone does. The old woman carries the empty chicha jar tucked under her arm. The headman's face has softened now that officials are far enough away to become merely a topic of conversation. The dog trots ahead, turns once to make sure the party still exists, then continues with the solemn pride of a guide who has done none of the difficult speaking. The village receives you without ceremony. No bells ring, no horns sound, no gatekeeper demands a market toll with one hand and wipes his nose with the other. A child's laugh flickers somewhere behind a wall, then is hushed by supper, smoke and evening work. Women lift bundles indoors, men set down tools. Llamas kneel in their resting places with slow, jointed grace. The accused llama from the maze matter turns its head as you pass, still innocent, still suspicious, still chewing as if truth itself is fibrous and best handled slowly. You duck into the household through the low doorway. Warmth touches your cheeks. The clay hearth glows red beneath a pot, and the room smells of potatoes, wool, herbs, smoke, and the faint sweet wax of the half-burned candle, now kept carefully near the wall. The guinea pigs rustle as though recording your return. The loom rests in shadow, its unfinished pattern waiting for hands and daylight. The iron key in your pack presses against your side, colder than anything else you carry. No one hurries. That is the first gift of night. The old woman sets the jar down, rubs her hands, and checks the coals. The headman's wife folds away the cloth used for the offering. Someone pours warm drink into clay cups. Someone else loosens a sandal strap and sighs with the deep honesty of tired feet. You sit where you sat before, near the hearth, but not too near, as if the house has made a place for you without needing to say so. Food comes gently, potatoes from the ash, a little maize, green stirred into a thick pot, a few preserved pieces saved from earlier days. The meal is not festive now. It is home food, end-of-road food, the sort that asks no questions except whether your hands are cold. You eat slowly. Steam rises into your face, around you. Talk moves in low currents, the official who counted too slowly. The priest's bright cloth, the soldier's sharp eyes, the way the players of stones held heat. The rumour of another work summons before the next moon. No one can quite agree whether the provincial centre feels safer because it is ordered, or more troubling because it is ordered by people who do not sleep beside your hearth. After supper, the old woman takes the crooked knot cord from where it hangs near your pack and smiles at it. Some swear that a cord carried through a place of power remembers the road and protects the doorway afterward. Those who tell the tale never fully agree whether this is true, but she ties it near the entrance all the same. It hangs beside the smooth threshold stone, where every hand brushes past. In your old world, an iron nail might guard a sill, a saint's badge might hang above a bed, and a monk might mutter over holy water with one eye on the stew pot. Here, fibre, stone, breath, and habit keep watch. The night thickens. Outside, the last workers cross the lane and vanish into doorways. The water channel goes on, speaking in the dark. Farther away, a llama bell gives one small note, then silence. The dog comes inside at last, circles twice, and lies near your feet with the certainty of a creature who's forgiven you for being foreign, clumsy, and slow on bridges. This may be affection, it may also be strategy. Even now, it is hard to tell. The pilgrim sits across the fire. His red thread shell rests at his throat, dull in the ember light. You ask him whether you will find the muddy inn again, the road of frost, the oak shrine with bent pins, the smoky rafters where this strange journey began. He turns the shell once between thumb and finger. Roads return differently, he says. This is not helpful, but it is the kind of unhelpfulness that sounds wise if spoken near firelight. You reach into your pack and take out the iron key. It lies in your palm, black and plain, smelling faintly of old metal and rain. It belongs to an oak door far away, perhaps to the inn, perhaps to a room you never opened, perhaps to nothing at all. You offer it to the old woman, but she shakes her head. Instead, she closes your fingers over it and points first to your chest, then to the doorway, then to the dark beyond the roof hole where stars burn over the mountains. No one explains. By now, you no longer demand explanations from every mystery. Some things are keys because they open doors. Some things are keys because they remind you that doors exist. The room quiets. Cups are set aside. The pot is covered. The loom becomes a deeper shadow. One by one, bodies settle along the walls beneath wool blankets. The old woman banks the fire as she did before, drawing ash over embers so morning will not have to begin from nothing. The half-burned candle is not lit tonight. It waits, pale and still, holding its little unused dawn. You lie down with your pack under your head, the iron key inside it, the red thread shell warm against your chest. The dog sighs in sleep. The guinea pigs rustle once, then grow still. Outside, the terraces hold the day's last warmth beneath frost, and the mountains gather the village into their great dark hands. The night becomes softer now, and the world grows smaller, not in a lonely way, but in the kind way a blanket becomes the whole sky when sleep comes near. You do not need to walk farther, you do not need to count roads, answer officials, cross bridges, mend walls, read knots, or understand every custom resting in the shadows. The hearth is low, the roof is quiet, the wool over you is heavy and warm. Smoke slips upward in a thin blue thread, and the stars beyond it seem patient, distant, and kind. You listen to the slow breathing of the house. Earth walls hold the warmth, the thatch holds the dark. Somewhere, water moves over stone with the same small voice it had at dawn, and somewhere beyond the village, the imperial road waits empty beneath the moon. But it does not call you now. Nothing calls you now. Your hands loosen, your shoulders sink, the red thread shell rests without weight, the iron key sleeps in your pack, and whatever door it belongs to can wait until morning, or another dream, or another life entirely. Ordinary people sleep around you, wrapped in wool, memory, labour, and care, and you sleep among them as the fire dims to a soft red heart. The mountains remain outside, enormous and gentle in the darkness. The last ember glows, then settles. The house breathes, the village breathes. You breathe with it, slower and slower, until the high Inca night, the medieval road, the smoky inn, the candle, the key, the dog, the terraces, and the quiet hands of ordinary people all fade together into warmth, stillness, and sleep.